Good evening and welcome to the March 19th, 2018 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to invite Patrick Hydeck from Boy Scout Troop 291 to come to the podium and lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Next on our agenda is the reflection. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is appointments. Looks like it's only reappointments this evening. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move a resolution of the council confirming reappointments made by you to the Economic and Business Development Committee, the Multicultural Affairs Committee, and the Transportation Committee. To the Economic and Business Development Committee, Don Fatsy, a 3-year term to expire in March 2021. To the Multicultural Affairs Committee, 2-year terms to Samira Hussein and Washington and Sangu, terms to expire in March 2020. And to the Transportation Committee, 2-year terms to Carol Berger and Joseph Allen, terms to expire in March 2020.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience whose name we just called? Okay, not seeing anyone, we will thank them when we see them. Next on our agenda is public comments. Let me do it this way. Raise your hand if you're gonna speak about Kelly Park. Okay. Raise your hand if you're gonna speak about any other subject. Okay. Joanne, let's start with you and the other subjects, and then we'll do all the rest for Kelly Park, because there's a lot of Kelly Park here.
Thank you. My name is Joanne Dretton, and I'm the president of Seroptimus International of Upper Montgomery County. Many of you already know a bit about us because for the last 3 years, we've been very fortunate to get one of your nonprofit school-based grants to teach our Dream It, Be It program, Career Support for Girls, at Gaithersburg High School. To date, we have facilitated the program for more than 100 girls here in the city of Gaithersburg. We will be submitting grants this year, not only for Gaithersburg High School, but also for Quince Orchard High School this year. They also would like us to teach the program both in the fall and the spring. Last year, we were able to also do a 1-day program at Watkins Mill High School. As you know, Watkins Mill at the moment is on the borderline of being able to receive City of Gaithersburg grants. And so our organization, which by the way is strictly all volunteer, we do not get paid for any of our services. All of the grant that we receive goes into the materials and scholarships that we offer to the students who are there. Our major fundraiser, which is coming up on April 22nd, which is a gala, is going to now have over 250 people present. Every year it seems to grow and grow as people recognize the type of work we're doing here at the city. In addition to doing the Dream It, Be It program, we will be giving out at the award ceremony, which Mayor Ashman helps us give those awards out, to 5 Live Your Dream participants who are women, heads of household who are going back to school so that they can better support their families. In addition to all of the work that we do in the schools, we are very active with your community services department. For example, we run the book distribution at the Holiday Giving Program. Last year, we gave out over 1,100 books, which was really a milestone. We are going to have 12 people working at the author pavilions at the book fair, which is the largest organization support to the book fair, I'm told. And the same thing happened last year, too. So we are committed to the city of Gaithersburg, and we would hope that some of the council members would join us at the gala. There will be a table for this city, and hopefully some of you will join us this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. And let me just, along those lines, just reiterate, this is a terrific organization. They're doing really good work in the city, all volunteer in places where it's needed, and it's a really nice event, so I hope you guys will consider it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you guys, come on up. And again, I didn't mention this before, but we ask you to please state your name and address or neighborhood for the record. And we ask that you keep your remarks to no more than 3 minutes. When your time's down to 30 seconds, it'll beep and turn yellow. When it's done, it'll beep and turn red. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, good evening. Steve Kaufman. I'm with Audubon Square. Live over in Sternwiller Court. I'd like to talk this evening about Victory Farm parking. Let's see if we can get this PowerPoint up and running here. Doesn't look like it's going to work.
Was staff, wait, I'm pausing your time for a second.
Okay.
Was staff aware that there was a PowerPoint?
No, I wasn't aware that they had loaded it ahead of time.
Okay, you know what, you can just describe it to us and email us the PowerPoint. We'll take a look
I'll
at it.
run through it, and then you've got I'll email you the presentation.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
I think you're all aware, Victory Farm area.
Oh, yeah.
Dead end, for you folks to know about it. There was the survey that was done a couple of weeks ago or a month or so ago in response to one of our residents bringing a petition forth in order to lift the parking restriction. Apparently, in response to the survey, 66 respondents out of 234 units did respond. 44 were in favor of lifting the restrictions, and of the 66 that did respond, they reported having 159 vehicles, which equates to 2.4 vehicles per household. And given that Audubon Square provides 468 reserve spaces and an additional 30 visitor spaces, that would basically leave 0.4 vehicles, or half a vehicle per unit, without a parking space, or a need for 98.6 parking spaces. On Fallbrook and Fallbrook Court, there are, depending upon how you park, 190 to 230 parking spaces available, which in effect provides for a third vehicle for every unit there on Audubon. If we look at the old management principle of 10-80-10, 10 above average, 10 or 80 at average, and 10 below, we basically have more than sufficient parking for our residents. What we don't have is additional parking for those people who have 3 or more vehicles. And I see no reason why the city of Gaithersburg or Audubon Square should be obligated to provide parking for families who have 4, 5, 6, or even 7 vehicles, and we can identify those. It was further said and suggested that trash cans be put out along Victory Farm. A view from a local trash can is what I really don't want to see on Victory Farm. I'm going to say I don't think anybody wants that in their front yard. It was also said that additional police might be provided. I've called the police numerous times, and what we get on Victory Farm down there is partying. We also get crack pipes down on Victory Farm. One of the other things that we get down there, people urinating in public, broad daylight. And then when it comes to overnight parking, which is what we're really looking to stop, commercial vehicles. And then there's the dead end, which on January 9th or January 3rd, I had to call the fire department.
Steve, can you just wrap it up real quick?
Yes, I can.
Because we got a lot of people that want to testify.
I can. So in summary, I think we have more than enough spaces without having to lift the restrictions. And the other and final concern is that on a snow emergency day like we have coming up tomorrow, I'm going to say those folks on Fallbrook, 190-some vehicles, won't have any place to move their vehicles to.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much for the extra time, and thank you for sending Sergeant Scarf my way. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Come on up.
I have actually a follow-up.
Well, you're
On
gonna.
this subject.
Yeah,
Well,
but there's somebody else talking on
when
this
it's your
subject.
turn for your 3 minutes, you'll get a chance
Okay, I
to.
didn't know if there was somebody else speaking on that subject.
You can
Good
pull that
evening.
down.
Yeah, grab that mic. Yeah.
Problems with being short. Good evening, Mr. Mayors, Council. I'm Dina Saunders. I'm Vice President of Audubon Square. Steve is my husband, and he spoke very well about what goes on about the parking, but also what we're hoping not to happen is the parking being lifted, the hours from 1 to 6. We do not want it lifted. Well, that's how a lot of us feel. It's going to cause more chaos, more trash, more noise, and we just, I personally don't want it. We face into the backside on Victory Farm, and all that would affect us on the backside. We don't need the additional parking back there, and if they were to get it, there's no guarantee Audubon would get any of that parking. It's open to anybody. So let's hope we don't get any more parking back there. We like it just the way it is. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, who'd like to be the next speaker?
On the parking?
Come on up
Okay.
on whatever subject you want. You have 3 minutes total on all of your subjects. So,
Okay, that's great.
okay.
Okay, my name is Rhonda Thiessen. I actually live in Saybrook. I live off of Grantchester Place. The parking that was taken away from Victory Farm has been a big impact on my street alone. I live next to 3 houses that are group houses. I don't know how many people live in them. There's a lot. There's a lot of kids who live in those, but I'm not concerned really about what goes on inside the house. I'm concerned about the 2 houses that have 7 cars per that house and one that has 5. And they cannot park in their garage because they need that space for living, all the people that they have living in their group house. So they're parking on Grantchester Street, which has one side parking. 22 years ago, there was a fire at the end of my street and 2 kids died. It is difficult to get down my street when the whole one side is parked by everyone else's vehicle. It's difficult every day. I have 2 cars, I park them in my garage. My daughter's gonna get a car soon, she just turned 18. Where's she gonna park? Everyone is parking on my street. You took it away from Victory Farm, and now they're parking on my street, and it's overcrowding, and it's illegal, and that's all I have to say. It's gotta be fixed.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not sure she was going to break up her testimony into 2 separate things.
Well,
I'm not sure we made that clear to her, so I'll make sure she...
okay, I just want to make it clear. Everybody gets one chance up here. You get up to 3 minutes to speak about whatever you like. That's what you get. Okay, so in terms of the overcrowding at homes near you, you're welcome to send me a note about it. We have a neighborhood services office in the city that they've been there. Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, a lot of times.
The interruption.
Okay, who'd like to be the next speaker?
We can start on the other topic.
Yeah, whatever topic. Kelly Park or whatever.
A lot of people raised their
Suddenly
hands.
they're shy.
Somebody got talk.
Who'd like to be the second speaker?
All right, here we go.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Shank. I live at 418 Bell Grove Road. I run the listserv and the neighborhood watch for Whetstone Run. The idea of building a school at Kelly Park would impact our neighborhoods just immensely, lowering the quality of life in a big way. We are exactly opposite where the school would be built. Getting out traffic-wise in the morning would be such a mess. We have seen what the traffic looks like in front of South Lake Elementary School in the morning. We've seen what it looks like out in front of Gaithersburg Elementary School. The buses, the cars, it's just a nightmare. We don't want that in our neighborhood. We have no guarantee that any of our kids would be able to go there, would be able to walk there, just like they can't go to Forest Oak. The other problem is the parking. To be able to put a school there, you would have to take the parking away from Victory Farm. Where does that come? It comes back onto our streets. It's a problem. It's already a problem. It would be a much greater problem. At night, for people parking, we are the overflow parking from multiple neighborhoods. And they come into our streets to park. And then during the day, any overflow parking from the school, where would it go? Ours, because Victory Farm would be all the spaces there would be taken by the lanes they're gonna need to get into there. We just do not want this. We love Kelly Park. It is the only park that the city of Gaithersburg has east of 355. It is a very nice park. We use it a lot, and we would like to keep it. And the idea that it is suddenly up for grabs, when there are places like out at Mid-County Highway, there's 11 acres that the city could use that would have no traffic problems, no parking problems. Why don't we use that? It's not a park, it's right there on Mid-County. It would be so easy to access. Why come and take away our park? Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to be the next speaker? I like all the speakers to just line up because we want to hear from everybody. Let's Chantal, come up. But anybody who'd like to speak as well, please line up behind Chantal.
All right, my name is Chantal Proniger. I live in the Whetstone neighborhood. And Judd and Mike, you remember when you were sitting with me on the back and we were dealing with Hidden Creek. And I was saying, we are going to have too many kids who will want to go in the schools. The schools were already crowded at that time, and here they are. Now we need to build new schools. But first of all, I agree with what was said before, but my main concern is, and it's not personal, okay? It's just, I realize you're stuck with that situation and you've got to do something about it. But I find it unethical, and I'm going to say it for lots of people who think the same way but just don't dare saying it. It's unethical to build a school to deal with illegal immigration. It's just not right. If you build a school because there's a need for the kids who are already there, and there's a need for that, it's different. But to deal with the illegal immigration is just not right, and that's all I had to say. But again, it's not personal. Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker, please.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name is Debbie Sarabia. I'm a resident of Saybrook. I live on Saybrook View Drive. I do understand that our schools are overcrowded. My concern about the proposal to build the school in Kelly Park is strictly about the location. I don't think it is suitable. I think for many reasons that have already been stated. I also want the City Council to consider that Kelly Park isn't free. It was created in part by using state open space funds. We don't know if that funding increases, probably not. So I would like the council to consider before you transfer the land to the public schools, will the city be able to replace this open space? Also, the Montgomery County Public Schools wants to build a LEED certified building, and I applaud them for wanting to do that. However, I find it ironic that they want to build a environmentally sustainable building by encroaching on our parkland. And I'm not an expert in LEED, but I think that appropriating parkland may also be a disqualifying factor for LEED certification. Finally, this evening, I just want to say personally, I go around jogging the park in the evenings, as I do, like 2 or 3 times a week. As usual, the park was very busy. There were parents and kids packed in the playground. There were teenagers playing a basketball game. There were people kicking soccer balls and walking their dogs and pushing the strollers and just hanging out, talking. And there was such a good energy there. It really felt like a community. Now I understand the school, they say, is not going to destroy the park. But it's going to take up a lot of breathing space. And, I was just out jogging around enjoying that space. And so this school, it may be needed, but it's much better suited somewhere else. And I asked the council to consider not allowing the school to take away our park. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Grace McClure. I'm a 19-year resident of Saybrook, and I have a letter compiled of people's requests that I read to you tonight. 15 years ago, Saybrook homeowners were told a middle school was going to be built in our neighborhood and that our children would attend. This did not happen. The BOE built the school and not only included Saybrook children, but bused in students from the outer city borders all the way to Montgomery Village. Meanwhile, Saybrook students were bused to Gaithersburg Elementary. This decision has greatly affected our home values and decreased the buying attractiveness of our and other neighborhoods. Saybrook residents still suffer this effect today. Sadly, we find ourselves once again in this untenable dilemma. Will our children attend this new school or not? Given past history, we say we won't get it. The BOE screams, oh, we'll think about it, but their demeanor throughout this process has been excluding us. We don't buy it. We will be the only neighborhood in all of Montgomery County that has 2 schools bookending our neighborhood that our children cannot attend. Amen. History cannot be changed. Saybrook residents moved on and invested in and valued the remaining aspects of our community. Kelly Park is a big part of this. Anytime the weather is nice, or even sometimes when it's not, snowstorms, for instance, there's sledding at Kelly Park. You'll find many Saybrook, Gaithersburg, and other Montgomery County residents from Bethesda, Silver Spring, enjoying our ball fields. Kids gather for picnics, reunions, and there is constant activity there. I walk my dog there 4 and 5 times a day. Removing Kelly Park will also upset the delicate environmental balance of this green space. As the city of Gaithersburg knows, upsetting this balance has ramifications that can be seen all the way to the Chesapeake Bay. No environmental study has been done to determine if building on this site can even happen. Who does that? The idea to build a school in this area will create huge traffic problems, safety concerns for our neighborhood and the surrounding areas. We already struggle with the pass-through traffic we get and the traffic created from Forest Oak Middle School. A new school will box residents in on both sides. When you combine the additional gridlock, bus stops, crazy drivers with a significant...
Grace, sorry, you're at 3 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have like a sentence more? You can just wrap it up?
I'll sum it up with building another overcrowded school to offset overcrowding of this school. It's already overcrowded before you dig a hole. The numbers don't match up.
Okay. Let me just say to everybody in the room, if you have more testimony than time is allotted, then you can submit it in writing and we'll consider it just the same way. Come on up.
Greetings, Mayor and Councilman. Pam Plaisted from 113 Billingsgate Lane in Saybrook in the city of Gaithersburg, where it was a beautiful day in the neighborhood today, where I live within walking distance to Kelly Park. I spoke with some park attendees this afternoon, and most of the people I spoke to did not know that MCPS and the city of Gaithersburg are considering Kelly Park for the construction of this new elementary school. There were many people there, again, that as other people have mentioned, that did not even live nearby. I was actually quite surprised by that. One dad came from near Lake Forest Mall with his young daughter. Another person was from the Villa Ridge condos and was not too happy about the park being changed. About 60 people, many of whom are city residents, have signed a paper saying they don't want a school at Kelly Park and they want to save the park. I know it sounds like I'm an environmentalist. I'm not an environmentalist, but many memories have been made over the park with parents and their children. I'm sure if you all are parents, you know what that's like. And several times a month, my husband and I sit in our car at Kelly Park and we just eat lunch. I'm allergic to everything in the world, so I have to stay indoors. But nonetheless, almost every time we go, I am shocked that he mentions how fondly he remembers our now 18-year-old daughter at the park. And here is a picture of her during one of the snowstorms at Kelly Park. She came to testify a few years ago about ballet stuff. So although Gaithersburg has the pillars in its character count city platform, I think they can all be summed up in the Judeo-Christian principle of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. I don't envy any of you for all the decisions you have to make about new construction and what needs to be done to make Gaithersburg one of the nation's premier cities. However, in sectioning off the park for a new elementary school, it would not appear to be something that would benefit the city or neighboring residents, as green space is being paved over space by space. And I sound like Joni Mitchell now. Without getting into any kind of promise in writing to nearby residents that children in Saybrook and Whetstone Run, et cetera, would be able to attend is a problem. To my knowledge, there's nothing in writing between MCPS and the city of Gaithersburg that would allow for this. As we heard from Adrian on March 7th from MCPS say several times during the community meeting that there will be a boundary study conducted 1 year into the construction of the school at Kelly Park. Just a few more. At the Board of Education meeting on March 15th, Mr. Song said that he had addressed you all in the council about the site and that he proposed that it would be a win-win situation and that you all seem to feel the same way. I ask you to consider your vote when it comes time to vote about whether to parcel at Kelly Park or do whatever you plan to do with the park and MCPS. I hope you'll do the right thing in the standards of doing unto others as you would have them do to you, as if you lived in Saybrook. When you vote, also remember the citizens and residents of Saybrook and surrounding neighborhoods also vote, and they'll remember you during the next election.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome.
Do you have one more sentence to wrap it up?
I have two. I have two long ones. No, actually.
No, just give me one.
Sure. Okay.
Wrap up.
All right. The Gaithersburg logo has a nice tree in it. Is it time to abandon the tree? I mean, and also just think about the property taxes that you all lose. Again, you get them through, somehow through the piggyback tax. But at the same time, when, the property values go down, there's less for other people.
Let me just
Sure.
ask a quick
Sure.
follow-up.
Yeah.
Is it your contention that property values will go down with the new school next door?
Yes, we've heard it from realtors and things like that, like possibly 40 to 60.
I'm asking one lady.
Sure.
I'd like to have Pam
yes,
answer that
sure,
question.
Thank you. Yes, I've heard it said that it could be going down 40 to 60, especially if the kids in the neighborhood don't walk there. And that there's already a problem, with the fact that Forest Oak is not allowed to be the school that Saybrook
Okay.
residents go
All
to.
right.
Thank you for asking.
All
I
right.
appreciate it. We look forward to having you guys in August at National Night Out.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Dennis Jansen, 103 Pembroke View Lane, Gaithersburg, Saybrook. It's taken 30 years to get me off my couch to come up before this council. I've lived in Saybrook for 30 years. And this issue of the school has got me a little agitated. I wish to register my strong opposition to the process and the result of the SSAC process followed by the BOE. My opposition centers around poor citizen input, increased traffic congestion, increased people congestion, and loss of green space. To the first point, I don't have details about dates and emails, but there was a serious fumble, a serious blunder that took place in not reaching out to Saybrook or the surrounding communities, Whetstone Run included, in forming the SSAC.
Dennis, let me pause you for just a sec.
Yeah.
These are all valid points. I heard about at the meeting a couple weeks
Right.
ago, but it wasn't our process. So
understand.
I think these. You're welcome to say this to us,
Yes.
but it's really the Board of Ed who administers and ran that process. So
And
I just want you to know that.
I have expressed my concerns to the BOE as well.
Okay, go ahead.
The composition of the 21 members of the SSAC were 6 members of the MCPS, 4 members of the Montgomery County Council, 2 members of the NAACP, 2 members of the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission, a member of Montgomery Village, and a representative from Washington Grove. I think that's pretty ridiculous. And they hide behind, the fact that they send emails to the surrounding communities. I think they've dropped the ball big time in not aggressively pursuing citizen input from the communities that will be most affected. So I just want to express my concern to the council and to request that they use whatever political power, whatever influential power that they have to bring to the public domain the scoring system that was used. And I understand, I've been in real estate with Marriott and Sunrise Senior Living for years. I understand the merits of the site. But I'm concerned about the process that was followed and not getting citizen input. And I'm just calling upon the council to make sure that they register that with the BOE. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Come on up. And if we have any beyond any others, please line up.
Hi, I'm Christine Rumney from Saybrook. I live on Victory Farm, and you probably all remember me, except Lorianne, you're new, from the parking debacle about Victory Farm and what we've put up with. And I understand it is a problem at Audubon Square and every place else, and Whetstone Run and Grantchester. I understand all that, but we certainly don't want it back. We spent 2 years dealing with this, and I don't know how many testimonies and everything else. And that is part of the problem that I brought up at the Board of Education meeting where I saw the mayor there, is that we've got people still parking at the south end of Victory Farm, and those spaces are going to go away if the school is put in there. Where are those people going to go? The community is already so congested. We have so much traffic. I hear all the buses and the cars going past my house. We've got people driving 60 miles an hour past my house ever since the speed bumps were lowered for some inexplicable reason last year. So why add more congestion? I know I've heard other sites suggested at the meeting that we had with the Board of Education member and MCPS. It's been suggested that where Forest Oaks is, there's room to add an elementary school there. There are plenty of other sites. I mean, Emery Grove is sitting empty as far as I know. The idea that this was all done without community input makes me feel that it was deliberately done that way. And, you know, and that the fact that everybody's acting like, oh, it's such a shock that we're concerned. But we've been talking about this congestion problem in our community and the surrounding communities for years now. And it's implausible to me that the MCPS and the Board of Education could not figure out how to get in touch with our community and the others. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Beth Junie. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I live in Saybrook as well. I've lived within a home that backs Kelly Park. I'm dead center in the middle of that park. I know the park better than any of you. I see that park every day. I see the neighbors. I see the people. When I left tonight, there were 32 cars in the parking lot at Kelly Field. There was a soccer game. You've heard all the activities that were going on. That is not an anomaly. That's a park. The only park on this east side of Gaithersburg, and you're going to take it away. And then the school board's going to restrict use. That is a park that has an environmental...
Let me put you on pause for a sec. If I can ask everybody, let's give respect to everybody who's speaking. I know it's really emotional, but we're gonna listen to what everyone has to say. We're glad to hear it. Let's just hear from Beth at this moment.
It has an environmental aspect to it. I was a teaching naturalist in one of my past lives. I used to teach at Casey's Barn. I was in your budget for a while. I know that area. I know it really well. And there were going to be habitats destroyed, birds that come. You wouldn't believe the birds that come into the community from that area that Washington Grove owns. I can't imagine that any of you would think this was a good idea. Now, first thing I did when I heard about this school was to get in touch with a realtor that knows our community very well. And I said, what is going to happen to my property values? My plat and Kelly Park's joined. He said, well, you're probably going to lose your value. And when my value goes down, and it will, and I've spoken with all the people whose homes back that park, and every one of them is just outraged that you all would let this happen, and you're going to make the ultimate decision. You could stand up to them. But I'm telling you, the thought that my property values drop, and I'm not gonna be the only one. It's gonna sweep across the community, and we have young people already moving out because they don't like the idea that they don't have a school available to them that their children can go to. I personally, because I'm older than most of these people, my property values mean a lot to us. A lot of people have a home, and when they sell it, they're hoping they've made enough money to maybe tuck away and, I don't know, buy a place on Cape Cod. Ooh, you all can come visit if you vote against this.
Woe to the City Council of Cape Cod.
Well done, well done. Do we have any other speakers?
Hello, most of you know me, but my name is Eleanor Davis and I live in Saybrook. And I just want you to picture something. Pretend you're a bird flying over the neighborhood. If you allow MCPS to take Kelly Park and build another school on that site, as a bird flying, you're gonna see 4 schools within a 1-mile radius. You've got Forest Oak, the new proposed Kelly Park Elementary School, Gaithersburg Middle School, and Gaithersburg Elementary School. The traffic is gonna be even worse than it is now, and it's pretty bad. Not only that, I know the city likes to have schools within their city limits. Unfortunately for us, we are within the city limits. Kelly Park is within the city limits. There are other sites. There are other sites in Gaithersburg within the city limits that you could choose to sell to MCPS, not give it to them for free, or trade another site for, I'll give you Kelly Park, you give me whatever. I mean, all these people here today took time out of their day. They're worried, they've been worried for months, and I have to thank Neil Harris for putting it on next door. Otherwise, we never would have known about it. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want you to think about our quality of life and the fact that we were lied to back in 1996 when we were told that we were going to go to Forest Oak. Mayor Bohr called me several times. We had several meetings with Mayor Bohr. We had meetings with Paul Vance, kept saying, don't fight the school, let it happen, your neighborhood will go there, and we didn't. So we're doing pushback because we want our park, and honestly, I don't care about the kids that are in Washington Grove or Summit Hall. They're not Gaithersburg. And to have us pay the ultimate price is just not fair. So, thank you.
Thanks. Any other speakers? Come on up.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to come out tonight. My name is Dr. Nancy Amenacker. I am very concerned about this on a number of issues. One, as a property owner, and secondly, as a healthcare provider. I have worked in 2 major Ivy League medical schools on the East Coast. You can guess which ones they were. One is in New Haven and one is in New York City. When you take away parks from local areas, the impact on the population is dramatic, especially when that is the only place they have. Individuals who have cardiovascular disease, those are individuals who are persons with diabetes. When you take away the parks, there is no place for them to have individual walking spaces where it is low stress on the physiologic systems in their body. Taking away our park is not just an aesthetic situation. It is going to cause physical harm on the individual humans living in the Saybrook area. I also happen to have a chronic disease. I need a grass space. You take away my park, I'm going to have problems. If I have problems, you're going to hear from other people. My concern is also when you're looking at children, if you have your little smartphone on you, pull up what's going on with obesity in the United States. Look at where Maryland is falling. Look at what has happened in the last 5 years. If our children are not able to walk to a school in their area, they're being bused away and they're losing, say, I'm being moderate, 20 minutes to 30 minutes getting to school and getting back. That's an hour of exercise time that they don't have every day. do the numbers, do the math. Obesity rates, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. My field space is oncology. When we're dealing with that, the city is going to have repercussions in that you're going to have to put more doctors, more nurses. You don't have doctors in the schools now, but you're going to have more nurses in the school systems to deal with children who are already coming in with type 1 diabetes. When you're looking at the healthcare costs to the city of Gaithersburg, this is going to be monumental. We're already seeing 2- and 3-year-olds with disease states that we didn't see 10, 15 years ago when I trained, and someone who was 30 or 40 years of age. We're seeing that in kids who are 2 and 3 years of age. Do the numbers. This doesn't make any sense. Leave the space where it is a park. Look at other areas where it is possible to put a school system in there as well. Talking about traffic, one of my colleagues forgot to tell you, maybe she just neglected. There's serious issues with the traffic in that we've seen people flying down Victory Parkway where some have stopped in crosswalks. Others have gone around them and almost murdered a family who was walking in a crosswalk who had to stop. One of those members of that family happened to be a very young child in a stroller. I personally am missing a CPR class for certification, and I left and didn't go to that so I could be here. So that tells you how important that is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other speakers?
Can I speak again? I have another issue.
No. You get one shot at it. Come on up.
I think she had a minute 47.
Good evening. My name is Martina Kravchik. I live in Saybrook since 1999. When we bought the home, we were very happy because we see a lot of green space, and we love the area, we love the community, and especially I think we keep our properties in very good shape. The homeowner is very into the, to keep the guidelines. And I live right in the corner, Grange Hall and Saybrook Oaks Boulevard. So the school is like one half block from my home. And I see the impact already from that school, how the garbage, people drop the kids and they throw the garbage in the middle of our media. We pay for keeping the property in good shape. We pay for our grounds and everything else. I also, as a hobby, I walk dogs, and I go all the time. I could go all the way from my street, Grange Hall, and then all the way around to Kelly Park. And I can tell you, around 2:45, 2:30, it's very difficult to cross the street to the other side of Kelly Park because the traffic, they don't do the stuff, they don't care. They don't care about pedestrians in general. And you see all the line of the school buses and the parents, they go Forest Fork. So thinking about, if I have to buy a house now knowing this, no way. It's a dump. We are punished. We are punished for living in the east side. That doesn't happen in Camelands. That doesn't happen in Crown. We pay taxes. I think we have to be listened and have a little respect to our community. I think we try to make the best, and there is a lot of professionals living in the community. I don't have anything against kids, but they could find another place. I think that's to be fair. That's all what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers? Okay. Well, we appreciate it. And again, anybody who has any further thoughts can submit them to us in writing. As my understanding of where this process is the Board of Education has received a recommendation from the superintendent identifying the Kelly Park site. They have to vote if they want to pursue it. If they want to pursue it, then they will have to approach the city and enter into a negotiation for the property. And any negotiation, any result of the negotiation would have to come before us as mayor and council for a vote. So it will be public. People will have to discuss it, and we look forward to hearing more of your thoughts as this goes on. So thank you all very much. We will move on to our public hearing on the enterprise zone, and I believe Tom Lonergan is going to come lead us.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, I guess there's a few things going on here. Where there is a public hearing that we are holding tonight because the city is prepared to introduce a resolution in support of extending and expanding the Old Town Enterprise Zone for another 10-year period. As most of you know, the Enterprise Zone program, a local economic development program administered or established by the Maryland General Assembly, provides state and local tax and fee incentives to eligible businesses within the zone. Those incentives include property tax credits, income tax credits, and other related fee waivers. Our zone's expiring. It started in 2008. It expires in June 2018. We are proposing to request a redesignation and with some redrawn boundaries. I have put a map up. I don't know if we're able to
it's up.
see that. That now would include the northern areas of Route 355, including Lake Forest Mall, Toys R Us, and Burlington Coat Factory, and the office properties in between them. And we would be shaving off a little bit of the multifamily residential at the far southern end and some areas around Girard and East Diamond, areas that are unlikely to be redeveloping in a commercial capacity or at all in the next 10 years.
Okay, so this is, so there's two items, but we're doing a concurrent public hearing, right, Lynn, or we're doing two separate public hearings?
We would be doing the public hearings concurrently.
Yeah, so if there's any questions, let's ask the questions, otherwise we'll open it up to the public. Any questions, comments? Okay.
So how difficult, I guess, Tom, I don't know how often this has been done. This is unusual, I think, to have the opportunity to extend the enterprise zone one more time. So I think it's definitely something we need to take advantage of, hopefully create the incentives that that we need to continue to redevelop this area. But I guess in this process, has a redesignation, not just a redesignation, but a change in the boundaries of an enterprise zone. How often does that happen? And how often is that likely to be approved?
I'm not aware of other examples where the boundaries have been amended. There are many examples of it, the zone being redesignated. It can be redesignated one time for an additional 10-year period. That's not unusual so long as the zone still meets the census data criteria that would qualify it for consideration, which, according to the state, preliminary review of the census data is that this area would still qualify for consideration.
So how does the census data for the expanded area match with the rest of the zone, I guess, since it's not mostly non-residential, right?
Right. The expanded area actually wouldn't qualify, but it abuts a qualifying census tract. So because it borders it, it can be considered for inclusion in the zone.
Okay. I mean, that's all the questions I have. I think this is, the appropriate thing to be doing at this point.
Okay, let me just, for housekeeping sake, we actually need, before we go to the public, we need to vote to introduce this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
But is that, okay.
Too late, we said aye.
No, I'm just trying to figure out, the public hearings are
Too
listed
late.
separately as an introduction and a separate resolution. We don't need to have a separate introduction for that resolution, right?
There should be a introduction for each.
For each?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm pointing
So
out, is that we need
the-
to make two motions.
Yes.
The second
I
one is
will
to
move-
expand the zone, right?
It's not exactly
There is
expanded
for the
because
public
it's
hearing,
changed.
then the resolution.
Resolution, yeah.
And to introduce the resolution, and we're also voting on the resolution
Resolution.
tonight as well.
To open the record.
No, it's a resolution,
It's a
so it doesn't,
resolution.
it's not an ordinance, so it doesn't have a record, but
Resolution,
Lynn,
yeah.
Why does it say
Yeah.
record?
go ahead and clarify.
Yeah, to clarify, I take back what I just said. I think we only need to do it for the first one because that's introduction of the resolution. The second is the public hearing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
That's sort of what I thought
Yeah.
okay,
after
So-
I caught on.
all right.
So
Is it-
you all did already introduce the resolution.
Okay.
Right,
Introduce
that's
the
was
So
just,
now we can move to the public
Okay.
hearing
okay, so
portion.
I just want to clarify, sorry to do this. Are the questions that Mike just asked part of the record on the public hearing, even though he asked them before we voted on the introduction?
They can be, yes.
Okay. To the extent that it's necessary to.
Clearly, that was the intent. was to have Mike's
Yeah.
questions.
Do I need a motion to include my remarks and questions?
Second.
I could say we can, just to make sure that.
Okay,
Yes.
just to be absolutely clear. So you've moved.
Nunc pro
Move
tunc.
that my questions and the responses that would be entered as part of the hearing.
Second. In second. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Lorianne, how are you voting on that? Okay, thank you. That passes 5-0. They are now part of the record. Okay.
All right. Now we're in the middle of our
Now we're doing the public hearing.
still going public hearing.
Unless anybody has any questions, I'm gonna put it out.
Let me just make a quick comment. About these dates that are on our paper. It says record held open until 3/28, so what is this?
Well, now we're just gonna do the public hearing and hear from the public, and then we can take action.
I mean, this will come
After-
back, this will come
after
back
the
on,
record closes.
April
Second.
April 2nd.
second.
For the actual vote.
Yeah.
For the actual vote, yes.
So I just want to say, this was the subject of a fair amount of discussion at the last city's Economic and Business Development Committee. And, everybody, I don't know if we voted a recommendation. I guess since we didn't have a quorum, we couldn't actually vote for it. But I think that the consensus in the room was that this was a good thing, that the change in the boundaries, the map's not up on the screen anymore, but the areas that were in light violet on the right-hand side used to be part of the zone and still benefit from some of the original incentives in the zone. But now it's been moved and not just expanded, and it includes Lake Forest Mall and some of the areas up there that could use some extra incentives. So it seemed like something that, given the needs of the city, particularly the areas surrounding 355, that this was definitely a direction that was supported by the Economic Development Group and by me as well.
Yes.
So can you tell us what the incentives were that were still retained by the area that's not included in the new boundaries?
Yeah. The way the county implements its incentives for inclusion in an enterprise zone, not just for Gaithersburg, but for any enterprise zone in the county. The county waives impact taxes, transportation and school taxes, which can be substantial. They are waived in the enterprise zone. But the way the legislation is written at the county level, the impact taxes are waived in any zone that even has expired. So if this zone were to even go away, the impact tax waivers would still remain in place unless or until the county decided to address that language in the legislation. So
Didn't the county recently kind of redo the whole way they apply the impact taxes last year? Or was that a different tax? In terms of calculating, there was a fee, like a school facility fee and then an impact tax.
That's the growth policy, the annual growth policy.
Right, and they sort of got rid of the fee and rolled everything into the impact tax, right? Is that right? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I don't think they got rid of the impact tax. I think that was
They changed the
that was
amount, the
about
percentage.
overcrowding.
Right.
It was about an additional fee if you were going to develop residential in a cluster that was over 120% or whatever.
Right, but I thought they somehow rolled all of that into a different category, because I remember when we were discussing our facility fee payment, that basically it had to be tied to the counties, and the county sort of got rid of theirs by moving that to.
It went from a fee to a tax.
Right.
And since we can't.
Right. So did that
impose a tax.
get rolled into the impact tax? What is that, a separate tax?
it doesn't apply here.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
All right.
But at any rate, one of the reasons why, aside from the fact that you get to retain the benefit, why some parts were left out of this is there's a maximum amount of acreage that can be included in an enterprise zone. So in order to include some, you had to move some of the others out. So
We are
just to
pursuing an
clarify that.
application that is a little bit, or significantly actually, bigger than what the state recommends an enterprise zone to be. They prefer a zone to be 160 acres or less. This one is approaching 250 when you include the mall property, but they are supportive so long as you can justify the inclusion. And we think that our mall analysis and this being a priority redevelopment area for the city, we should state and county review of this has supported our conclusion that we should include it in at least the request.
What's the cost to the city in terms of revenue?
Good question.
To give up, in terms of what the incentives are?
I did not bring the staff analysis. I believe we'd sent that out in a memo form, but there is a 10-year tax abatement period if, for argument's sake, there was commercial redevelopment.
Okay, so city property tax revenue abatement for 10 years.
Of 80% for the first 5 years, but the state does reimburse 50% of that back to the city.
The other thing is, in
Right.
all...
There's the indirect benefit, I understand, which is
Well, no-
certainly offsetting any
But not just
lost
that.
tax revenue.
It's that for the places that we're considering designating as enterprise zone, it's highly likely that anybody who would come in to redevelop would ask us for these properties. These would be normal asks anyway.
Well, it doesn't reduce our current revenue, it reduces the increased revenue that we would get from the improvements on the buildings.
Right.
Right.
Is one piece. The other piece is, isn't this the one where nobody's actually requested this credit for buildings
There
that
has
have been
been one.
developed?
One. There has been one in 10 years.
Right, so it's probably, the impact on all parties is pretty minimal unless, because apparently the paperwork required to take advantage of that incentive is fairly onerous.
I mean, it's nice to have additional incentives in your toolbox.
Yes.
To overuse a word that we use a lot in the city. So, I mean, I think that was, looking back on our initial discussion about creating the enterprise zone and renewing the enterprise zone years ago, was basically like, we don't know how many people are going to take advantage of this incentive, but why not add another tool to the toolbox to help encourage, revitalization of Old Town. So I'm not saying that, by asking these questions, I'm not to suggest that I oppose renewing and expanding the zone. In fact, I do support that. But I just think it's important for us to use the hearing as an opportunity to have a good discussion about what this really means and why we're doing it.
The fact that the map of this zone is shaped like a hatchet is actually really cool. I
We
like it.
noticed that.
Rob, Mike.
I was shaking my head at you.
Yeah, I already. I hope that, we haven't had many developers or property owners take advantage of the credits that have been available to them. And that's been disappointing. I don't know how else we incent that other than by identifying certain properties that are high priority for the city, and the entire development community knows that. So there are some advantages here that hopefully will stimulate an application for credits to redevelop some of these properties.
I would just respond to that, if I could, by saying that the impact fee waiver has been a substantial benefit here in Old Town. Archstone, in particular, benefited from that, and the proposed mixed-use development at 315 East Diamond Fishman likely would not be happening without the impact fee waivers and with the city's inclusion of the affordable unit reduction requirement in there. I would say that the parcels here are smaller. There is a minimal amount of investment at the commercial level for the state to even consider the property tax abatement. But with parcels the size of Lake Forest, potentially the Burlington Coat Factory site, you would probably get requests for those property tax abatements should substantial investment or redevelopment occur.
Yeah, the other interesting point that came up in the meeting was that the commercial real estate community who were present felt that even if people weren't taking advantage of them, they were very strong incentives for that provided marketing benefit, even if it didn't result in tangible benefits. So that they felt it was a good thing even if people weren't using it.
Okay.
God bless marketing.
I think what's important is that it helps the community understand our interest in redevelopment and our willingness to work with developers and property owners to increase their value. I guess the last question I had is, did Hidden Creek the apartments take advantage of any? Were they were part of the zone?
They were
right?
not in the zone.
Yeah, they were. I think it was just
outside the
Just
zone.
beyond the
Okay,
original
Yeah.
all right. Dan, I'm done with my questions, so.
All right, let me put, is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this topic?
Well, I had a quick question.
Okay.
I just wanted to know what we're doing to advertise the enterprise zone benefits. I know that we have stuff on the website, but are we doing outreach to potential?
Well, we outreach to developers and to the brokerage community very commonly, and we will be hosting another developers lunch. We highlight all of the benefits available.
Okay. How often are we doing that?
We did the developers lunch annually, but the outreach and meetings with developers is throughout the year, and with the brokers.
Okay.
We're always ready to take ideas on how to do more, but we do get the word out pretty efficiently to the community that this benefit is there.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to talk more about ways we can maybe increase, if we're going to extend it for another 10 years, and then expand, and especially now that Lake Forest Mall, the entire 355 almost corridor, I think this is like really important to get in front of everyone and have a package prepared to share.
We can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this topic? Okay, not seeing any. Then let's see where we are on the record. So staff recommends that the mayor and council hold the record open until 5 p.m. on Wednesday, March 28th, with anticipated policy discussion on Monday, April 2nd. What's the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to from the mayor and council, and we were going to start with council member Spiegel.
Thank you. Good evening, and once again, a very happy birthday to the mayor.
Thank you.
I can't imagine a better way to celebrate your birthday than
This has been very
a
enjoyable.
long, action-packed mayor and council meeting.
Yes.
But best wishes, I know I speak for all of us. Let me start with a formal announcement about a council in the communities meeting. Notice to the general public is hereby given that the Gaithersburg Mayor and City Council plan to conduct a council in the communities meeting on Wednesday, March 21st, 2018, 7 p.m. at Gaithersburg High School, 101 Education Boulevard, Gaithersburg, Maryland. The meeting is being held for the following communities: Apartments, Amber Commons, Chelsea Park, Diamond Acres, Diamond House, Rosedale, and Summit Hall. Condominiums, Brighton East 1, 2, and 3, Cedar Village, Fireside, and Lilac Gardens. And the following neighborhoods: Brighton East, Brown's Addition, Deer Park Place, DeSelum Avenue, Foxwood, Gateway Commons, Observatory Heights, Rosemont, Summit Hall Reserve, and Water Street. Please contact Neighborhood Services Division Chief Kevin Roman at 240-805-1042 for more information, or if you need accessibility accommodations. And we look forward to seeing you there this Wednesday, March 21st. First, from my own personal comments, let me apologize for being a bit off the radar screen the last few weeks. As everybody up here knows, and as I tried to communicate to folks before it happened, I had a very intensive couple of weeks at the day job, and so I had to disappear for a bit, and then I got to squeeze in a little vacation time at the end with my family. But I'm glad to see that the city did fine in my absence. Probably better than normal. I don't have too much to update other than a bit of a detailed update on the Maryland Municipal League's legislative priorities during the statewide legislative session in Annapolis. The session is well underway. In fact, today is what's known as crossover day in Annapolis, where all of the bills that you want to actually pass have to go from one house to the other. They have to pass the Senate and get to the House so that the House has time to consider them before the session ends in April, and vice versa. They have to pass out the Senate so that the House can consider them before it ends in April. So there's a lot of flurry of activity happening. As we've spoken about many times already from the dais, the Maryland Municipal League's top legislative priorities this year, first and foremost, to restore highway user revenues, a portion of the state gas tax revenue that is supposed to go to cities and towns to help us pay for road maintenance and other transportation infrastructure, was taken away mostly from the cities and towns back in 2009 during the Great Recession. We've been working for 9 years to try and get it back. We have a little bit of it now, but really nowhere near as much as we should be getting. There's a lot of promise right now and a lot of optimism about a compromise bill that has now passed the House. And later this evening, actually, will be under final vote consideration by the Senate. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. That will restore about 80% of our highway user revenues, pre-recession levels, and guarantee that money, predictable funding for the next about 6 years. And it will at least give us some time over the course of the next 6 years to have that predictable funding that cities and towns can use to plan our budgets and also work on a more permanent solution. Hopefully 6 years from now, everybody will realize this is something that just needs to continue to be extended. But it's a pretty good compromise, and we're excited, keeping our fingers crossed that it will cross the finish line, and it will be a major victory for the Municipal League, for all of the cities and towns around the state, and certainly be a big benefit to the city of Gaithersburg in terms of revenue as well. And then another priority of the League and also the city is the bill to amend the Maryland Public Information Act to make sure that when members of the public sign up for our government email newsletters and emergency alert systems, either via text or via email, that we can protect your email address and your phone number so that if someone makes the equivalent of a FOIA request to City Hall, we don't have to give them the list of every email address that's signed up for our emergency alerts. And that bill has also already passed the House and is up for a final vote later this evening in the Senate. So again, an action-packed day. And then our third priority statewide for the Municipal League, and also a major priority for the city of Gaithersburg, as anybody who's been paying attention to our press releases and our statements knows, is we wanted to prevent the passage of a state bill that would have preempted local authority over the siting and permitting of small cell facilities. And that bill was scheduled to be heard in a committee hearing in the state Senate tomorrow. And we just got word today that the hearing was canceled, generally an indication that the committee chairman has decided, we're not really going to move forward with that bill for a variety of reasons, some of which are the advocacy of the League and the city of Gaithersburg. So I think we can be proud of that accomplishment as well. Of course, there's no guarantee that that bill won't come back next year or in a future year, and we'll have to deal with it at the time. But at least for 2018, everyone's pretty confident in saying that that state preemption bill on the small cell facilities issue is pretty much dead. So, great updates on the progress on these legislative priorities. Hopefully, the next time we have a formal meeting, the final votes will have been cast, and we will be able to say with certainty that all of these priorities have now succeeded. So stay tuned. But later tonight, we'll be watching carefully as the state Senate casts some of these final votes. And I want to thank my colleagues on the Mayor and Council, staff, particularly Lynn and Monica Marquina and Michelle Potter and others who've been very, very active in the Municipal League and in supporting its legislative priorities in past years and particularly this year as well. And all the members of the public who've been very active in sort of honing in on these issues as we've tried to do outreach and let folks know about what highway user revenue is or all about this small cell preemption bill. There's been a lot of public engagement. And so we appreciate that because your engagement, as well as the engagement of municipal officials around the state, is what's allowed us to be so successful thus far in 2018. Also wanted to add, related to MML, that the Montgomery County chapter of the League had a couple of events last week. First, a luncheon in Annapolis where we had an opportunity to push these priorities again as we met with state legislators, always a good event. And also an evening meeting, an annual evening meeting that our Montgomery County chapter does with the Montgomery County Council every year. And it was a good opportunity to discuss some of our priorities at the county level with them. In particular, we had a good discussion with the county about our joint interest in protecting local authority over small cell facilities. And the county council is going forward with a public hearing tomorrow night on their proposed zoning changes to address small cell facilities in the unincorporated areas outside of Gaithersburg and in all those other municipalities around the county that don't necessarily have their own independent authority in this area. But that does not affect within the city of Gaithersburg. We have already passed our own ordinance and regulations, as we know. I think that's it for me. I just want to wish everybody who's celebrating a happy Passover and a happy Easter, happy spring as we await a blizzard on Wednesday. Hopefully it won't be a blizzard. But our next formal meeting is until after the holidays, so I just want to wish everybody a good one.
Hard to believe we're here already, but
Yeah.
Neil.
All right, so I'd like to second the welcome for the first day of spring. I've done my best to control the winter weather by gassing up my snowblower, and I haven't had one drop used up so far. I was hoping that we make it through tomorrow and Wednesday that way as well, but I'm prepared for anything. I know that Ryan spoke on highway user revenue at great length, but I want to congratulate him tentatively, touching wood, for the good work on that. That's millions of dollars over the 6 years of that bill for the city of Gaithersburg, of our tax money coming back to the city so that we can keep our roads in the pristine condition that we appreciate here in Gaithersburg. Enjoyed the St. Patty's Day parade. I think I get to be the first one to mention that. It was a really long parade this year, thanks to the amazing election year that we have. I think out of 79 groups that I counted are in the parade, 30 of them were people running for various offices. And that doesn't count the fact that we were in the parade as well, since we're not up for election this year. But hopefully everyone had a chance to chat with the various people and help, because there's going to be a lot of names on the ballot this year, so hopefully we're all paying attention and making good choices. Also attended the Monday of the National League of Cities, and I'll forego much more comment on that because I know several of my colleagues were there, and I want to leave them things to talk about as well. And finally, one of the things that we chatted about a little bit at the Economic Development Committee meeting was and I'm probably going to steal some of what Tom was going to talk about here, but 700 Quince Orchard, which has now been leased to a biotech company called Supernus, with the help of Gaithersburg and the county and the state providing some incentives, will provide not only the jobs that are moving over here from the current location, but a large number of additional jobs, and also filling up a building that has been very hard to lease out, that's been empty for a while because of the way it was constructed, but also enabling a townhome community to grow up around it, which we were kind of holding the line on it because we didn't want a townhome community built around an empty building. So I think that's great. Also, I'm not sure, and this was news to me at the meeting, I'm not sure if it's news to other people at the dais, but the Shear Partners has worked out a deal for the building next door at 704 to do a biotech incubator in that building, where they're going to build some spec lab space, which has been something in very short supply here. There's basically no small lab space available in Gaithersburg. So yet another, basically we have about 50% of all the biotech companies in the county are here in the city of Gaithersburg. So continuing to build this solid community. And I know that the folks from MedImmune who were at that meeting were very excited, and it was news to them, and it was exactly in line with the strategy that they have of making it that much more attractive to bring in employees from outside of the region by having alternative companies that they can share with. So I thought that was great news for Gaithersburg's economy, and hats off to the economic development team and everyone else who worked on that project. It's really good news all around. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. Lorianne.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm sorry I missed the meeting last week because I was at the NLC conference, but before that I had the pleasure of going on a tour with Comptroller Peter Francho, who visited us after the funding of an addition to Diamond Elementary School. So we saw the new addition, we got to check out some of the classrooms, visit with some of the teachers. And so we're really proud of the work that they did at that elementary school. We have so many schools that are overcrowded and in need. So it's good to see that our tax dollars are put to work in the community, and with advocacy, all of our schools will be able to accommodate the students that are attracted to this community. I also attended the Old Town Advisory Board meeting. They're at the point where they're discussing art in public places. If you've been watching the park site, should be done this summer.
No, earlier.
Earlier.
You're talking about the Park Plaza
Yeah,
here?
Park
Park
Plaza.
Plaza.
Should be done the next month or so, right?
All right, so hopefully we'll be cutting the ribbon soon and enjoying this new outdoor space in Old Town. It's good to see some new development happening here, and that's just going to be the beginning, so I'm excited about that happening. And they were talking about art in public places, so if you have any ideas, I'm sure they would welcome your input on some ideas for that area and around the city as well. Rachel Carson Elementary School just wrapped up their book fair at the end of last week, and I had the opportunity to visit the book fair on the last day and read to the kids. It was Women's History Month this entire month of March, so I read the Ruth Bader Ginsburg I Dissent book to the kids, which was very interesting.
Oh, and that author spoke at the book festival a couple
Yes.
times. Yeah.
Oh, see? Thank you, Mayor. I also attended the St. Patrick's Day Parade, my first parade as an elected official, and it was very fun. It was great seeing a lot of people out there. We had really nice weather, and I just want to thank our city staff and our public safety officers for keeping everyone safe and keeping the parade moving along. We had no accidents. The traffic was moving very smoothly. And given what just happened at Corner Bakery, it was just really good to see such a nice turnout. And as Neil mentioned, the NLC Congressional Cities Conference was this past weekend. It culminated into a day of advocacy on the Hill. The key priorities of the National Leagues of Cities this year was infrastructure. 4 main elements about the infrastructure is ensuring that we have the workforce to accommodate the infrastructure needs that our country is facing, ensuring that we have the right infrastructure for water, and Ryan's talking about small cell facilities. Broadband was another key issue that cities around the nation are facing, and just infrastructure in general. We need the funding. So it was really important that all of the stuff we learned over the course of the 4 days, that we were able to go and talk with our Maryland delegation and communicate to them how important this is, because it'll ultimately fall on the city, who will have to pick up the tab if we don't get the support from our federal government. And that, yes. Oh, yes, and I also attended the Maryland Municipal League with the Montgomery County chapter in Annapolis. Very well attended, and great job to our colleague on the council for his advocacy. Everyone is well aware of our presence in Annapolis because of Ryan, so thank you for doing the great work on all of our behalfs. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorianne. Mike?
Okay, well, St. Patrick's Day, as always, was just awesome. Great parade, and, you know, we had the extra pleasure of a lot of politicians walking the route this year. So I want to thank staff and our volunteers for that, and all of our co-sponsors for this. Let's see. So I also attended the Cultural Arts Advisory Committee, and this was a combined meeting with OTAC, in which the topic was pop-up art spaces and how we might take advantage of that in Old Town. So it was quite nice to be able to talk about some of those things, and some of them seemed like real possibilities at a low cost to the city, but actually at probably a very valuable experience to artists who want to show the world what they can do there. So, all right, I also attended the National League of Cities from Congressional City Conference. I was not able to go up to the Hill, but I want to thank Lorianne for visiting with joining a team from the NLC and visiting our representatives on the Hill. I think we are fortunate in that basically all of our members of Congress and 2 senators are very much on board with our priorities. And those are priorities that are important to cities, all the infrastructure. So one of the things that this year I'm chair of the advisory council to the board of directors for the National League of Cities, in which the president, Mark Stodola, who is the mayor of Little Rock, his presidential priority, each year the president of the league has a priority program that they want to promote. And this year his priority is the future of work and the workforce of the future. So he asked the advisory council to consult with, to provide information about what their cities are doing in supporting programs, initiating programs, or co-sponsoring programs to look at the future of work and the kind of workforce that we're going to need. And I think one of the notions is our late colleague Henry always talked about was vocational training and the importance of that, and the fact that there's actually a shortage of people in the building trades and industrial trades. So the ability to have a relatively middle class earning potential doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to college, to a four-year college. You get a degree that you can learn to become a tradesperson with the skills for plumbing or electricians or cement work or steel work, anything like that. But there's certainly a demand, and the demand has a lot to do with the cost associated with new construction and redevelopment. So when there's a shortage of people, the salaries go up, income goes up, but it also takes longer to get the work done. So that's important. So I'll be talking to staff about some ideas that we can contribute to that as well. I also attended a session on entitled "The Rising Tide of Preemption," and that focus was really about the rise in attempts by the telecommunications industry to preempt local authority, how timely, by states and the federal government, particularly the Telecommunications Authority. And one of the instigators of this certainly has been the industry. They also discussed broadband, but this was a group of speakers that were actually provide a lot of information, and I think if these bills are introduced again next year, we should invite, there's a couple of experts here that can talk about the thing, not just small cell, but also the expansion of broadband. And clearly the communities throughout the United States have problems with broadband access for their residents. The problem is that none of the telecommunication concerns that want to expand that actually talk about delivering broadband to those people in greatest need. They're only interested in coming into suburban neighborhoods, upper income neighborhoods where they think people are going to demand better cell service. So that's probably true, but on the other hand, we didn't see in some of the people, the industry reps that have come to see us, they don't talk about bringing broadband and efficient cell service to the densest parts of town or lower income parts of the city. So, I mean, I think that's one of the things that we have to keep in mind. So, very great approach. But then we also heard from Mayor Troxel of Fort Collins, Colorado, where that city has decided to implement their own broadband system and be a competitor with the other cities or the other companies that can provide this. So they become an internet and broadband provider for anybody in the city. So they were talking about how that works and the opportunity it presents for them, but also to create greater competition for consumers in the city, which would actually serve to lower prices. So that was pretty good. And that's about all I have. I just want to. So that's it. Everybody, happy Easter, happy Passover, and whatever else, and happy spring.
Birthday.
And yes,
That guy.
and happy 50th birthday to Judd.
It's not really 50. It's not really 50. 47.
Oh,
It's
okay.
47.
Okay. I know.
Okay, you know.
Judd, you just matured so much. I figured that you were really that. The stature that you bring is the stature of someone.
Actually, I think of that Hamilton line.
And it's the gray hair, too.
Yes.
The Hamilton line is only 19, but my mind is older. I like that
Okay.
one.
All right.
Okay. Rob.
Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations on the achievement of getting one day older.
That's 47 trips around the sun.
That is 47.
Wow, steep.
That's pretty.
So before I get into the lengthy formulaic statement you require me to read, I'm going to make some personal comments. As been mentioned by some of my colleagues, I was out in Annapolis at the MML luncheon. It was a great opportunity to see and talk to a lot of our friends in Annapolis that do a lot of great things for the city. Also attended the parade. It was longer this year. Had an opportunity to get a lot of candy for my son because for whatever reason the candidates who are in the parade this year like to give out candy, so that's a good benefit. Other stuff that I've been doing, attended the EAC meeting, the monthly meeting. Just a heads up that environmental awards are coming up, and we actually have a lot of interest from groups that have not expressed interest before, so we'll have a lot of new awardees coming in. Attended the Multicultural Affairs Committee. It's the new committee that's been assigned to me. They've been lacking a council liaison for quite some time, I've been told. And so we did a lot of planning for the diversity showcase, which is coming up, and it is teeing up to be another wonderful event. So I encourage our residents to attend that when it comes.
April 14.
I think so. I got it in my.
I'll look it up while you speak.
Took this weekend to go to play soldier. Did Army drill, and it seems when you disappear for a weekend, you miss a lot of events, including some events that I want to attend on Sunday. But I did pass my PT test, which is a good thing. It's a big thing, at least for me, as far as the Army is concerned.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Had the opportunity to shop local, and I just wanted to bring that up because I purchased a few things around town. We have some great stores in the Kentlands that sell plates that just wanted to show, maybe perhaps hand out to my colleagues here today as a sample. Some others here as well. I also had the opportunity to shop at one of our fine establishments in the Rio. It's a cupcakery that is bar none, I think, the best in the city. So I'd like to hand some of those out as well. So I'll pass this to Mike. This is enough for folks on this side of the dais. There's some napkins here. There's cupcakes to go. There's actually enough cupcakes for everybody in the room, which isn't hard this late at night. So please come up and take them.
What's your favorite?
That's why you gotta stay till the end.
As I get to this long formulaic statement that I need to read, we
All
can
right,
perhaps.
Saybrook residents, you should have stuck around.
There you go. And I'll be moving my colleagues to perhaps test their singing voices once I'm done reading this. So notice to the public meeting. Notice to the general public is hereby given that in advance of submitting the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, 5-year consolidated plan and annual action plan to housing and urban development, the city will hold community meetings on the following dates. April 5th, 2018 at the Casey Community Center, 810 South Frederick Avenue, 7 p.m. April 10th, 2018 at the Wells Robertson House, 1 Wells Avenue, 7 p.m. April 12th, City Hall, 31 South Summit Avenue at 12 p.m. These meetings are being held to introduce the CDBG program, identify the expected level of funding for next year, and describe the overall goals of the CDBG program, discuss types of projects eligible for funding, and accept all comments related to the program. A Spanish-speaking interpreter will be available, and upon request, sign language interpreters and other auxiliary aids. Please provide advance notice at least 3 business days prior to the meeting date. These facilities meet the requirements for handicap accessibility. For information on this and all other matters related to the Community Development Block Grant funds, contact Luis Kaufman at louis.kauffmann@gaithersburgmd.gov or 240-805-1022. Almost forgot. My son made this for you. He insisted on it, actually.
Really?
We're trying to make them.
Yeah, and I better not be the only one singing.
This is
Did you guys get
too
cupcakes?
much.
Rob must be buttering you up for
floating
something
around
really
out there.
controversial.
I insisted on that one.
Very cute.
All right.
So
Thank
happy
you very
birthday,
much.
Mr. Mayor. I don't know if we actually want this.
No, don't sing.
Okay.
I appreciate this very much. Thank you all. I wanted to first off, pretty much everything that needs to have been said has been said. I want to thank Ryan and Michelle and Lynn and Monica for all the terrific work that you guys have done in Annapolis. Obviously, we're not at the finish line yet, but we've made a lot of progress. It's really an admirable job you all have done. So thank you. Congratulations to staff on the St. Patrick's Day Parade. Another excellent event, and I've heard from a number of people who participated that they really enjoyed it. And I also had a chance to get a little FaceTime with the comptroller, and we had a very good and productive lunch. And he seems to think very, very highly of the city of Gaithersburg, and I appreciate that. So next week, our work session, we have a joint work session with the Planning Commission, Monday, March 26th, to receive a presentation from Toole Design Group on new road cross sections. So this is sort of how the roads of Gaithersburg's future will be designed. And the next regular meeting of Mayor and Council will be on April 2nd. And now we'll go to from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I feel bad I didn't bring anything, but I will say
We're taking notes,
that
don't worry.
today in Annapolis, in the right across from the State House, it was mentioned to me that it was your birthday today. So
Really?
your name is certainly
It's a
out there.
big deal in Annapolis.
That travels far and wide.
Saw the governor?
No, I did not see that.
I'm the governor.
The weather may intersect with a couple of things. Just to let you know, Council on Communities is scheduled for Wednesday, which is when the bulk of the weather, if it hits, is expected. So if schools close on Wednesday, it will be taken out of our hands.
Yeah.
And there won't be any community use of school. Neighborhood Services went ahead today and grabbed the next available date, which was April 4th. So we already have a backup date if we're not able to do the 21st of March.
Good thinking.
The other one is the Forest Oak Cemetery project. You know, we've gone through a long process of having to fabricate the new archway. That's completed, and they were scheduled to begin demolition of the streetscape along 355, mostly the iron fence that's there, of course, on Wednesday. So we're not sure whether that one will kick off that day, but you know, as soon as it dries out, if we do get some precipitation, that one will be back. And then just a point of information, a lot of you read about the tragedy of the bridge at Florida International University. We, in fact, are in the middle of an engineer's inspection of all of our, mostly footbridges, but also some other structures. It's completely coincidental. It was approved in the budget last year, and we're going through it now. A company called Brutus Associates is doing it. But they did point out a couple of small bridges that did need repair, and they did get repaired. But more importantly, they have identified 2 of the high mast lights at Kelly Park number 2 as potentially, have not got confirmation, but potentially needing to be removed. We are waiting for a final designation, and then Public Works will get on that. But you know, as you know, high mast lights are basically attached to a pier by bolts and nuts, and some of them have bent just a tiny bit, but that's enough to get the attention of our engineer. I just, given the intense interest, especially in Kelly 2, I don't want anyone to think this has anything to do with MCPS, that we're going to go out there and perhaps remove some of the lighting.
Right.
It's specifically because of the engineer's report. And we hopefully won't have to, but it's possible that we will.
Yeah.
And then we'll decide whether to put them back. We actually don't use the lights at Kelly 2 that often.
Yeah.
So we'll decide what to do at that time. If we take them down, we'll take them all down. We won't just take 2 down, because Kelly 2 actually is pretty close to in line for replacement anyway. So we would just have one vendor take them all down at the same time. Then we'll either decide to put them all back at the same time or not put them back at all. But we're waiting for final determination from our engineers.
Thank you. Thanks for being on top of that. I grew up in Miami. I know exactly where that bridge was, and I mean, it wasn't there when I was there, but I know the intersection, and yeah, that's terrible.
So can I ask a quick question? So, I mean, we had pretty severe winds in the city, 2 weekends ago, I guess, right? But I never heard any reports of any significant damage. in the city, we had a big tree down on Chestnut and Mean that fortunately did not manage, it managed to avoid every major structure except for the power lines. What, did we have anything significant? Any roof damage or other tree damage? Or
We had some trees, but nothing really significant. I understand that some schools had some fascia issues, the aluminum plating that's on the front. This study was actually done on March 8th, so I think it was actually just before.
Just before that.
It's mostly related to the age of the poles.
Well, I guess, we keep our city well maintained, so.
That's what we do.
Withstand hurricane force winds.
We certainly
We're going to move on to
reasonable
economic
measures.
development. Tom Monaghan.
Thanks for having me back. I'll try to be brief. Back to the enterprise zone for a moment. I just wanted to mention that Sharon and I attended the county's Planning, Housing, and Economic Development, or FED, committee meeting in Rockville, where the proposed redesignation and expansion of the enterprise zone was discussed and thankfully unanimously supported by all committee members. We anticipate a final vote on a resolution at the county level also on April 2nd. I wanted to also mention that Sharon and I recently attended and represented the city on what they call a broker's tour at 930 Clopper Road, one of the biotech flex buildings over near the bowling alley, sponsored by Alexandria Real Estate that owns the building and Shear Partners. The building has 2 office lab suites that are available, each around 16,000 feet. The event was held so that brokers in the market could see the space and hopefully help ARE land a new tenants in the space. The spaces are beautifully fit out, tenant ready, and this frankly wouldn't have been notable a few years ago, but with lab space at such a premium, opportunities like this in Gaithersburg are very few and far between. ARE is also the partner, as Neil, you mentioned earlier, with Shear Partners in the acquisition of 704 Quince Orchard Road. And it's probably been alluded to, but I'm not sure we all appreciate how substantial this acquisition is. 704 Quince Orchard is exactly the type of dated, struggling office property that we pass and occasionally give toolbox grants to help support tenants moving in. But the type of reinvestment that ARE and Shear is committing to this property is substantial. It's a 75,000 square foot office building, only 30% occupied. So they're taking a chance here. And frankly, it was just a few years ago that ARE was actively divesting out of the suburban Maryland market, focusing more on the West Coast and Cambridge and the Raleigh Triangle. They are recommitted to this region. They own 500,000 square feet of lab space just in Gaithersburg alone. They're kind of the biggest player in the biotech market here in the region, so it's very encouraging to see them doing what they're doing, and Shear as well. I just wanted to call them out. I also wouldn't be surprised if a little down the road, when this project is completed and they've put in millions of dollars to convert the space, that the tenants that they're then looking to come in will be seeking toolbox grants to help further build out the space for the individual companies. So we'll also be meeting with the state and the county in coming days for ways that they might be able to better help startups moving into spec space like this. Finally, I just want to mention that on Wednesday and Thursday, I once again look forward to attending and representing the city at the International Council of Shopping Center, or ICSC's Mid-Atlantic Conference, always held at National Harbor. Retailers looking to expand in the region are always there. It's nice to meet them and push the city. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Nice tie tonight.
All right, we're going to move on to ordinances, resolutions, regulations. I'll invite Stephanie Walker, our Director of Finance and Administration, to lead us in the introduction of the budget.
Good evening and happy 27th birthday.
Thank you.
Our pleasure to share here with you. I'm here tonight to introduce the fiscal year 19 budget ordinance, and more importantly to ask that you announce the upcoming public hearing for April 16th. During the public hearing, we'll do a high-level summary of the budget to be followed with our budget workshops later on in April. So I'm not going to get into the detailed numbers at all tonight, but our draft budget ordinance is included in the publication of the public hearing that will be posted in the Washington Post on March 29th. We anticipate having the full budget books available online no later than April 4th, and hard copies will be available here at City Hall. We are scheduled to hold the budget work sessions on Monday, April 23rd, and if necessary, Tuesday, April 24th. And although the public hearing will be on April 16th, we anticipate requesting that the public comment be held open through May 9th to incorporate any feedback we might receive. The notice of public hearing will include the amounts in the draft ordinance, but I wanted to point out that we do anticipate those numbers would change between now and when the final ordinance is presented to you in June. We will get, additional information on things like our health insurance and on state funding that may or may not change. It sounds like the optimism is there for numbers to go up. So we're excited to hear about that. We also anticipate the final budget will be back to you for consideration of adoption on June 4th. And as far as the draft budget ordinance goes, there were no significant changes to the format this year, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on it.
All right.
Well, I'd just like to point out, I know we looked at these numbers a few months back in comparison to some of the other comparable sized municipalities in the area, and I'd just like to point out to the residents of the city that, and the taxpayers of the city in particular, that compared to other cities of our population, our taxes are very low. Even when you take out the fact that, for example, Rockville does its own water, which is included, even when you take that out on a per capita basis, we're doing great. The numbers look good. A significant portion of our budget this year is, the total number of our budget is higher than it usually is, but it's mostly because we're pulling money out of basically our savings, which counts against our budget to spend money on major capital projects like the public safety building across the street that's being built. So I know we've been through this at the strategic planning retreat, and as a fiscally conservative city, I think we're doing great. So thank you for your good work on this.
Hear, hear.
Well, with that, maybe you want to move the introduction.
I will move the introduction.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries 5-0. Well done, Stephanie. Next, we will move on to Mike Johnson, Director of Public Works. Talk about contracts for engineering services.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and happy birthday again, Mayor.
Thank you. Good evening.
You're really milking this, man.
That's at least 10 birthdays. He's like 57 by now.
57 by now.
The resolution that's before you this evening for consideration is one that authorizes the city manager to enter into a series of contracts with several firms to provide engineering services in the following 4 areas. Category A is streets improvements. Category B is structures, design and inspection. Category C, traffic engineering. And Category D, technical writing, other civil and site engineering. An RFP was issued in July of 2017, and we had a very vigorous response. We had about 20 firms that responded to the RFP in many categories. And we decided to select 2 firms who offered the best value in each of the categories and subcategories to enter into contracts to support the rather vigorous infrastructure push that Public Works is currently engaged in. The current contract term will be for 1 year, and there will be optional 1-year renewals, a maximum of 2 of those. But for each of the subsequent renewals, we plan to come back to the governing body for permission, because one of the reasons we approach it that way is that in each year, we are not certain the amount of money that we would spend. So we didn't think it was wise to sort of do it up front in that way. The aggregate dollar value of the contracts will not exceed $733,500 for the first contract year. Any questions on?
Well, I know that at the strategic planning meeting, we discussed a procurement, I guess a new procurement document that would kind of outline how we selected firms that we go into contract with. I'm wondering if there's a set aside for local businesses or set aside for diversity factors when we go into
Enter into these types of contracts?
Exactly.
We try to use, we don't have any minority set-asides or goals when we're soliciting currently for this sort of service, but we do try to use local firms, and that's sort of like regionally local, not necessarily
state.
within the city proper,
Okay.
to who we've worked with and who have a good reputation. When you're doing an RFP, the selection criteria is not just price, it's price and other factors.
Okay.
So it does give the city the latitude to introduce other weighting factors in the selection.
Okay.
For this solicitation here, we sort of went with technical skills, pricing, and past performance of the firms
Okay.
to sort of help us with to get going with this.
Okay. Thank you.
So is the concept here to have 2 contracts in each category with no guaranteed work, or how are you guys going to then work on either assigning or competing the work between the folks that are companies that are selected in each category?
Okay, so that's a very good question. And within, suppose that we have a category of work that we wanted to award, we would issue a task order to the 2 firms that are within the category. So we'd have a second round of competition where they would submit hours, and then which would sort of render down into a price, and we would choose the best value for the city. So so we've gone through one level of competition, and then for each task order, there's a subsequent competition between the 2 firms who are selected.
And you said that's price-based at that level?
It largely would be price-based. I would want to say it's probably best value. Sometimes, we think both firms are equivalent, but when we talk to the firm, they're sort of really busy, and we feel that another firm can focus on our project a little better. We don't want to necessarily just say that it's exclusively price, but price would most of the time be the criteria that we would use to select it.
Is there any minimum for guaranteed work for each of the contractors in each category?
I do believe that when we enter into the contract, we have to give them a $500, not sure what you would call it, honorary?
Consideration.
Consideration, thank you. Yes, thank you, consideration. And that sort of binds us contractually. Beyond that, there is no criteria, there's no obligation to have a minimum amount of money spent with the firm. But we do have, having said that, we do have quite a bit of work, and we anticipate using the skills that we've retained to help us with bridges, culverts, pavement management, bicycle master planning, on a sense, not master planning, but studies and things of that nature, projects of that nature.
Neil.
So speaking of bicycles, I know I have a transportation committee meeting, so I need an answer to this question. We've been discussing at that group and before council a number of studies related to the gaps in the bicycle network. Is that anticipated to be part of what we're discussing right now?
Yes, it is.
Uh,
All right. That
A
was the answer I
significant
wanted.
portion of the funding for this would be for studies.
That would be category A2, is that what that is? Bicycle?
That would be A2, yes.
Okay, terrific. Are we anticipating looking at the pedestrian bridge that was proposed and partially funded by MedImmune to cross Great Seneca? Is that something that's coming up at any point?
Yes, actually, it's we are in the process of working on that. We're sort of trying to narrow down to maybe 2 schemes that we would like to consider. At an appropriate point, we would bring our deliberation before council to do a presentation on it.
All right.
But we have been studying that and working with Dennis and Tony. We've spoken with I haven't spoken with Tony yet about it, but Dennis about it, and
All right, well,
we are working on
just
it.
for your information, there's given the number of projects that are proposed for the Kentlands area related to retail, people have been asking about what's going on with the bridge, and the MedImmune people have been saying, we'd like to have it too. We're wondering when the city's going to make up its mind. So I think it's very timely that we do something, and I know it's been on the books for a long time, so I'd like to see it moving forward.
It will. I think in probably within another month or so, we should be more or less ready to come before the council to sort of present our deliberations with the firm, on what we've done.
All right, that's great. That's great news. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems we have more information about the status of the CCT that allows, I think, us to kind of move this forward. So I agree with you. I'm anxious to see that bridge too. So my question related to this is our experience in working with any of the two that are chosen for each of the categories.
We have experience working with several of them. Some of them are new because some of the areas are new for Public Works as an organization that we're working in. But they have pretty good references and a very strong bench technical bench.
Okay.
So we are comfortable that the stable of firms that we have is pretty strong, and we'll be able to get what we need done.
It's always good to find new partners, but work with experienced ones that we've had good luck.
You want to move it?
I'll move the
Resolution?
Move the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Carries 5-0. Thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you.
Michael.
Thank you.
Greg Mann, welcome.
Good evening. Staff's before you tonight to request a setback waiver, 16 South Summit Avenue, which will relocate the new location for the city's police station. So the property is located in the Old Town District and is currently zoned CBD. The setback waiver comes before the City Council pursuant to Section 24-160F.5B, which permits the City Council to grant waivers to the setbacks in the CBD zone. In the CBD zone, a 15-foot setback is required when property is abutting a residential zone, which is not recommended for commercial, industrial, or buffer zoning on an adopted master plan or an approved planning document for the central business district. In this situation, the St. Martin's Church, Parish Center, and School is located in the adjacent property and is zoned R90, and that is located right here. The setback waiver being requested tonight is for the proposed 2,185 square foot police department outbuilding, which is located here on the site plan. The proposed outbuilding is part of the repurposing of the existing site and office building to facilitate the city's police department, city council chambers, and future city office space. The proposed project also includes modifications to the existing office building, updated parking improvements, landscaping, and fencing. The requested setback waiver proposes to reduce the 15-foot setback requirement by 6 feet. This will permit the outbuilding to be located approximately 9 feet from the property line. It should be noted the adjacent building located on St. Martin's property is the school's gymnasium and does not have any windows facing the proposed outbuilding. Additionally, the outbuilding is proposed to be located approximately 26 feet from the adjacent building. It's staff's opinion the location of the outbuilding will not detrimentally impact the neighboring buildings' access to adequate light and air and will not will not adversely impact the surrounding property. The reduced setback will permit the outbuilding to be located within newly constructed secured police-only parking lot. The proposed outbuilding will include necessary police support services, including bike and evidence storage. The one-story building will be clad in brick and stucco panels and includes a cast stone water table and a cast stone band at the cornice. And the gable roofs will be covered with stainless steel metal. The site has received a courtesy review by the Historic District Commission and has been approved by the Planning Commission. A condition of the Planning Commission's approval required that a setback waiver be granted by the City Council prior to the issuance of a site development permit. Staff supports the proposed location of the outbuilding and is of the opinion the setback waiver request meets the standards required to grant a waiver as outlined in Section 24-160F.5B of the City Zoning Ordinance. And staff is available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Greg. This, it makes all the sense in the world. It's pretty much a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. What's the pleasure of the council? Any comments?
What does St. Martin's position on it?
They don't have any windows facing it.
Yeah,
Well, there's still the adjacent property owner.
I believe
They
we
didn't.
reached out.
Have
They
they
didn't
seen the
mind.
plan?
They knew about it.
Staff has met with the principal of St. Martin's, and they're okay with the project. We discussed the various issues.
How about the Monsignor or the head religious figure?
I believe
don't want to
that
offend
The
anybody
principal is
that
going
has
back to
prior-
discuss that with him personally. so.
Okay.
Was that just piousness there? Any other comments before, or someone want to move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 5-0. What do we have? Staff guidance. Oh, okay. John Schlichting. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and happy 27th birthday, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
Yes. I am here to request a motion to close the record on schematic development plan SDP 7712 2017 Kentland Square infill sites. The joint public hearing for this SDP was held on October 16th, 2017, and on December 6th, 2017, the Planning Commission recommended approval with one condition, which was requiring the proposed drive-through aisle to avoid crossing any sidewalks. During the January 16th, 2018 Mayor and City Council policy discussion, the Council expressed its desire to see how the applicant would satisfy the Planning Commission's proposed condition and voted to reopen the record indefinitely. The applicant submitted a revised drive-through layout, which is consistent with the proposed Planning Commission's condition. The Planning Commission is now scheduled its recommendation on the revised plan this Wednesday on March 21st, 2018. So staff recommends that a motion be made to close the Mayor and City Council record by 5 p.m. on March 30th, 2018, with anticipated policy discussion on the revised plan on April 16th, 2018. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
So there was a discussion in the neighborhood about the fact that that closing the record before the actual meeting when we vote seems suboptimal in terms of people show up at the meeting, but they can't be heard on the record. I checked with our legal counsel, with Lynn, and there's no law that requires us to close the record in advance. It's done as a convenience. I would be much more comfortable in this particular case and in general to think about it for future cases where we have a vote on an issue that people care about, to keep the record open until the 16th on the date that we vote for it, rather than closing it 2 weeks early. I'd like to know what the feeling of the rest of the council is on that.
So let me start and just say, we have a long tradition of closing the record for a certain amount of time before we take the vote. I think the spirit of that was so that when the mayor and council, when we're doing our homework, we can consult and consider the complete record. I think if we were to sort of change that policy and keep records open until the day of the vote, we can run into issues where one party or another presents some piece of information at that very meeting that the other party is not able to rebut, and we could perhaps open ourselves up to certain liability that way. So I'm a little wary of it. I'm interested to hear what the council has to say as well.
Yeah, I think the period of time between closing the record and final decision, policy discussion, is appropriate to assess the kind of comments that we might hear, whether they're facts or opinions, and to distinguish between whether it's facts and opinion and what the veracity of said facts might be, the truthfulness, whether they're really facts and what the impact might be. I don't think certainly the applicant doesn't have direct opportunity to respond to those until after the record closes, but I think that period of time before we make a final decision and the closing of the record is pretty important, just in our own analysis and assessment of those kinds of comments. So we've given the community plenty of time to address this. The community can come and talk about this at any regular meeting. It doesn't have to be on the agenda to discuss this and share their opinions. So I was probably the one that raised the most hell about the particular design, what I consider to be a design flaw or challenge. So that's anyway. I think our practice is appropriate, so I don't believe we should change it.
So to that point, I just wanted to add that I did encourage the public to come to this meeting tonight to present to you their opinions on this project, and I don't believe there were any here.
Well, that said,
There was nobody here.
we've received a lot of comments from the public lately that have been submitted to the
Yes.
record.
In writing, yes.
I don't think that'll end, so I think, up until the 30th, when the record closes, I think we'll continue to, that is the 30th, right, we're talking about?
After the planning commission.
So I don't think that we're gonna have any, that's gonna deny anybody the opportunity to tell us what they think, or to present some other facts in their favor, so.
I tend to agree with what the mayor said earlier. I mean, there have been, in the years that we've served on the council, I mean, there have been a couple of rare instances where very special circumstances warranted some reopening of the record to bring some material in. But generally speaking, as a rule, I agree that, it's better for us in terms of deliberations to have a closed record without last-minute things being thrown at us while we're trying to make our final decision. So, although I appreciate where Neil is coming from.
I would be of the position that whatever decision it is, it's uniformly applied. So not that we have certain issues that are hot buttons, so therefore we'll extend the record through the close of the deliberation meeting, and others will keep the same 2 weeks. So that would be my first thought on it. My other thought on it is, I'm not wedded to 2 weeks, but I do enjoy the opportunity to read through the record, to deliberate on it. The flip side of that, and I think where Neil might be getting at, is there's more interest in an issue the closer you get to the vote, and some people might not realize that they finally focused on it, but they had to submit things a week ago. So I would be in favor of moving something closer to the date that we are set to deliberate and decide on the issue. But I'd be more comfortable, I think, with having a set and closed record when I walk to the dais rather than having to deliberate on the fly. So I would even be amenable to closing the record the day before the hearing, because then I would have the opportunity to read through the complete record, consider any of the last minute folks who suddenly started paying attention and wanted to flip off an email to us.
But that, if it was,
Staff putting
maybe,
stuff together.
Interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
if it was the day before, it would be difficult logistically for staff to get it into the record for us to consider, like physically to get it scanned, get all this stuff scanned and put on into the PDFs.
It's also for the public to see what's in the
Publicize.
record.
Yeah, the public,
The
yeah.
public needs to see what's in the record as well, and I think that's so, that's
Well,
why I
but-
would say
but-
that's
but
a
so-
little too brief.
I don't see the difference between the public reading the record between 2 weeks and 0 day versus 1 day and 0 day. I mean, I don't, anyway, so that would be my thought, and I perhaps 2 weeks may be a little too long, and truncating the period. It doesn't need to be a day. It could consider the logistical requirements of staff, but you do see a lot of folks, or maybe not a lot of folks, but you do see folks coming in, submitting stuff after the closing date. And it's probably because they're getting closer to the date that we're starting to publicize stuff and people are starting to focus on stuff.
I don't see it a lot,
Publicized
but
stuff.
I have seen it. I don't see it a lot.
Yeah, that's why I backed off a lot, but it is noticeable that we do get those emails coming in, and then you have to remind them that the record is closed, and then
Right.
sometimes you get folks showing up the day of, and you have to tell them, well, then they have to testify during the public comments, and I'm not sure whether we can consider what they said or not. So, my thoughts.
Well, I would agree with my colleague Mike and what the mayor has expressed. Since the record isn't closing until, well, the planning commission isn't making their decision, their recommendation until the 21st, it still gives residents at least a week and a half to give us feedback. And I feel like if we make a decision or a concession for this one community, we're gonna have to do it for any plans moving forward. So if that's something that we wanna consider moving forward, a shorter time in between, I think we have to talk with staff, maybe 2 weeks, maybe too long, maybe a week. But I don't think we can make that decision. I don't know how we're marketing this, when the record closes. Do we put something on Facebook? I know we have it on our website, but are we pushing it out to the public as regularly and
You wanna make it
as,
April 3rd, so that-
like a week before the record closes? Are we putting that last
so
minute
they-
push out?
Well, it's here at our meeting tonight, and
Okay.
it will be on the website
Okay.
and on the project page. on the
Okay.
website.
What about on Facebook? Because I know we use Facebook for a lot. I don't know if we use it to talk
tweet.
about, provide comments.
I don't believe we do that currently, but that's certainly something we consider.
Yeah, I think, we use Facebook for so many things of,
There
engaging
are-
with the public.
There
so-
are some instances where we have to be careful about treating one issue different from another legally, from a legal standpoint.
Well, I
But
think what Lorian's talking about is uniform practice.
Yes, so we
Yeah.
have to come up with a communications plan. I think we've talked about this a lot, about the increase in communications and utilizing technology that is available to us to reach as many people as possible, especially around another hot button issue as this. We've gotten an influx of communication from residents, and I know they're really concerned, and the master plan of Kentlands, and so there's so many
Is that
pieces. I want to make sure residents have more than enough time to consider the planning commission's recommendations and any other opportunities.
Okay, Neil, and then Ryan, then Mike.
But I read it,
Okay,
what do I
so,
do?
couple of things. First of all, I'd like to point out that whatever time you close the record, somebody can always submit something at the last minute that somebody else doesn't have a chance to rebut. So it doesn't really matter if it's 2 weeks ahead of time or 5 minutes ahead of time. Whoever gets to speak last can't be rebutted. But I'll tell you, when, in the several years I've been serving on this council, I just assumed that it was some weird state law that required the record to be closed before you actually had the discussion at the meeting to do the vote, because that, on an issue where there's some controversy or some public passion about it, that's when they show up, in my experience, is at the meeting, not tonight, despite what John's hope that they would have come here tonight. I think that on the 16th, when we vote, there's going to be a room full of people that will be frustrated over the fact that they won't have a chance to weigh in at that point. So that's why I suggested, I think it should be, I would think it would be logical to have a policy like that. And my understanding is that other municipalities in the region, at least, generally have the policy that people have a chance to have a say in public, whether it's verbal or written, at the right up until the point where there's a vote. So that's what seems like the right thing to do to me, but I understand it's not the way things have worked here.
Well, there's certain instances where I've seen Rockville hold numerous hearings on one topic. So we usually hold a discussion session, and then we'll vote or close the record or whatever. They'll actually do a meeting, take public comment, announce another meeting, take public comment at that, and then take a vote at some other time.
Mike, or Ryan?
I just wanted to interrupt our regularly scheduled discussion to announce that the Senate just passed the highway user bill.
All right.
All right.
Unanimous.
Congratulations. Ryan.
And I'm sure the governor will take credit for it, so it's all good.
Everybody wants to take credit as long as we get our money.
Yes, success has 1,000 fathers. That's what I say.
All right, so I guess, look, I think one solution is to have a public meeting, a regular session of the mayor and council be the last time that people can comment. That would be April 2nd. All of that would be you could close, instead of closing on the 30th, you could have the closing on either April 2nd at midnight or April 3rd at 5 o'clock. That's 2 weeks before our policy discussion on April 16th. That also gives people time to react to anything that the Planning Commission votes on March 21st. So I think that accommodates the opportunity to address these issues in a session in front of the council, or to provide their opinion or comments by mail. It gives us an opportunity to hear that in public. And then we still have enough time for staff to deal with any issues that might arise from any of those comments. We vote in 2 weeks. I don't see the difference between closing it on Friday night or closing it on Monday night after our meeting. So
you want to
that would be
make a
my
motion?
motion, is that we hold the record open until
The third.
Do the 3rd.
April 3rd at 5 o'clock.
April 3rd at 5, yes.
Okay, I think that's like,
Do we have a second?
does that,
I'll second that
Second.
on the basis that it's a good compromise, but when people show up on the 16th and want to have their say, I'm going to say I told you so.
Well, you know,
That's
they're
fine.
going to be here because it's the public hearing for the sketch plan for Kimco. So the same residents who would be here for this are probably going to be there for that.
but, you know, and you can say so, but I've lived through this before, so I understand. And in fact, I've been in the audience living through this kind of thing before, when the record was closed and I had some testimony, or Judd had some testimony about things before we were on the
Did it make
council.
you
so-
happy?
And so you just
All right,
shouted.
all right.
You
No, it's,
shouted it.
what my point is that, you know, we had our time, and, you know, the council didn't have to regard it, but we still had our time. But we were also here before the record closed on those issues as well, so.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries 5-0. Record shall stay open until April 3rd, 5 p.m.
Thank you.
With
Thank
the
you, John.
addition, Mr. Mayor, that I echo what Lorianne said, I'd be willing to look at truncating the time period on a uniform basis.
You already voted.
Tony?
Oh, no, that was an addition.
If you want to discuss
Long term.
if you want to discuss this idea about the length of we keep records open with staff, and at least get some sort of staff opinion about what's logistically
Possible.
not possible but comfortable. Like what can we adjust the rhythm at all?
I'll do that. I noticed that there are letters in your package for tonight's meeting that are only a week old.
The one that Mike's reading.
So we turned that around. I'm not sure that equates to the record.
Yeah.
So we'd like to look into that.
Okay, please do. All right, City Attorney.
I have nothing further this evening.
Anything from any other staff? Okay. As we
Can
mentioned,
I
yeah.
congratulate all of our staff and our colleagues, especially Ryan and Lynn, and the rest of the staff that were involved in getting this legislation
HUR.
taken care of, especially HUR, but also PIA.
And our colleagues in Rockville as well.
Well, I'm talking to this group, okay? You can talk to Rockville, okay? I think the entire league was, this was a major agenda for the entire league, and so all of the members of the league should be congratulated as well. I know they all spent time that I wasn't able to spend doing that, and so I appreciate that very much, but I just want to congratulate everybody on this.
And we love
This is
Rockville,
really good.
but we
do
have the
love
legislative
Rockville.
chair of
Yes, that's
MML.
I thought
It's
Ryan.
not my birthday. I mean, come on.
I thought Ryan was the league.
Okay.
Okay, so
Thank you.
congratulations and thank you for your efforts.
MML.
Yeah. Okay, as I mentioned, next week's work session
Thanks, Mike.
will be a joint work session between the mayor and mayor and council and planning commission to receive a presentation from on the new road cross sections, and the next regular meeting of the mayor and council will be on Monday, April 2nd. Until then, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.